Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio. We're very excited to welcome Leah Waybright on the show. She is a composer, a pianist, a recording artist, a teacher, floral artist, wildlife preservationist, and a dreamer. We're going to have her on another show, too, coming up in September, right in time for the fall equinox, because we love wildflowers around here. And if you listen to her newest album, which is called Dreamed, it's out now. You're going to understand that connection between flowers and just the land and just the beauty that the land is. So check it out. You can go to our website, leahwaybright.com. So welcome, Leah. How are you?
I'm doing really well and very happy to be with you today.
I'm very, very excited. I'm so glad you're going to come on a show in September because we've got to talk about all things plants. But Nancy and I were listening to your music today, and she's like already like, I want to make videos with it, with flowers doing these things. And she has a thing about making videos with flowers because they have faces and they do things. And I find that your music, yeah, because you listen to it and it is nature to me. That's to both of us. So with it being Dreamed as the title, and it's a beautiful, beautiful album.
Oh,
I
thank
just
you.
feel all kinds of different cycles of nature, to be quite honest. Like I
Ah,
even feel different seasons, and I can feel when like a flower is like, "Hello, I'm here, I'm coming," and this resilience. There's a I don't know if this makes sense to people, but to me, it's personal, and I don't like to get opinionated about music because everyone's got their own thing. But I felt like this sense of resilience through the album.
oh, that's wonderful to hear. Because at this time, we all need that.
Yeah, we do, right?
In fact, it
Yeah.
was it was pretty much born through the pandemic. It was something to do while in quarantine. So I love that you're picking up on that vibe. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's kind of when you think about flowers and plants like wildflowers, things happen. We've seen wildflowers where they don't maybe grow to their full potential, but they're like, hey, I'm here. I'm still doing what I can. You'll see wildflowers grow in cracks in the road. And I think there's like a persistence, a resilience that comes from that of
Oh,
nature.
yeah, yeah. In fact, some of the titles on Dreamed are actually what some may consider weeds, but I just love the names of those particular wildflowers, like Enchanter's Nightshade. I actually was pulling some today because I really don't want it to spread, but the name of that flower is so absolutely enchanting. And also Awake Spring Beauty. It's just that feeling of everything coming back after being asleep for a while, and that's how I felt trying to do this to come out of the pandemic, just to bring a little bit of hope and color and life back. And I love your word resilience. I think that really sums up something I didn't even realize I was trying to do.
Well, it's interesting being in the pandemic, right? But some of us, well, we had a shelter in place and for a few months, and then we were out on the road and we got to see nature come back through that because
Mm.
we were like one of the few people going to parks that were closed because of facilities, which were like, okay, we can get around these things. We don't, um, but we saw things that I know for listeners who probably heard me say this 1,000 times on the show since the pandemic, but we went to places where you go to an overlook and the overlook where you normally drive is grown over with grass and things, where you just normally we've driven over it with
It had a
cars.
chance to revive. I was
Mhm.
so lucky. I am so fond of wildflowers, as you mentioned, but I was curator of a wildflower preserve that happened to be an island in the middle of the Westchester County's largest private nature preserve, Teatown Lake Reservation, and like everything, it closed up, and the building wasn't available to anyone. But I was able to keep working like nothing ever happened because I could still go down and unlock the gatehouse and go out over the bridge to the island and do my thing like it was any normal time. So I felt very, very blessed to be able to do that and
Wow.
keep a certain even keel in my day to day. But all of these things fed the need to want to start sharing some things because life is feeling kind of a little bit fragile, and as are the wildflowers. I mean, the fact that they're delicate and fleeting, I think, makes them so very, very, very precious. and I wanted to do all I could to start to share some of my sentiments.
Mm. Now, this album is definitely not your first. Music and flowers have been part of your whole life, right?
True.
So yeah, yeah, and you've got a lot of good friends in music, obviously, that also performed with you in this. Like I was saying, oh, just it's amazing to me how harmonious everything is in your album, because
Oh,
there's a lot of like, okay, so like if you look at a field of wildflowers, there's a lot going on. Like when we went to Mount Rainier National Park, there's a place called Paradise, and this it's in Nisqually Valley, and I literally could not. I mean, I've seen like super blooms in the desert, and that's insane too, because everywhere
oh,
you look, there's another species. And
wow, Lisa, I got to tell you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you got me covered in goosebumps because when I was 16 years old, I took a trip. I've always lived on the East Coast. Well, for a short time, I was in an all-girl band in San Francisco, but
cool,
for the most part, I've always been on the East Coast. And I did a hike at 16 when you don't know what you're going to do with your life, right? And
right, right,
I
cool.
hiked Mount Rainier and I saw
No way.
wildflowers to my right and snow to my left. And my
Mm-hmm.
mind went, how can there be flowers when there's snow? And that left such a monster impression on me that, you know, years later I realized how important these special species be for the entire planet. So I love that you're mentioning that because I kind of forget that that was one of my real inspirations to even get involved with flowers. Period. Are the artistic end of teaching floral design and doing programs in front of audiences where I'm building things, structures and designs, and hoping to heaven that it comes out anything like what's in my
Yeah,
head
right.
because I'm doing it live and in person for the one and only time. It doesn't get rehearsed. And then I realized, these things came to me in a box from somewhere else on the planet. And it's more important to me to know what should be under my feet. When I finally was able to own property and take care of a garden, my first garden was this Wildflower Island, which was a perfect way to begin to nurture back the earth. Even though I grew on a farm and there was wildflowers and weeds and all those things around me
Mm-hmm.
entirely, but we grew all our own food. And I always had a connection to the earth and to nature and the things that we need to sustain and the things that should be growing here that sustain the wildlife that have been here for tens of thousands of years that depend on these plants. And if we upend them all and bring in our pretty little landscape favorites, they don't have what they need. So it was a great education, and Mount Rainier was my starting point, I have to say, at
Wow,
16.
that's so wild, right? And my point with Mount Rainier was the biodiversity of it, right? So when you listen to your album,
Mm-hmm.
you, it's biodiverse. And so because you have a lot going on, which prog rock has, right? It's got a lot, yet it's building and it's flowing together, and it's so crucial to have the dynamic and the flow and the harmony. And so what you've put out in music is harmonious, and to me that's amazing because it's like I think I have to like play your music. We always try to explain biodiversity, and so now I think now just go listen to our
Oh
album
my gosh.
because you're hearing this beautiful song. But like for me, just I can, it's like, ooh, this is popping up. Like, when you walk a garden, you walk in the morning, then you walk at the end of the day and it's changed. Like, ooh, is this going to bloom today? And then this is poked up and then that's poked up. That's what your music is like to me. It's like everybody raising their little faces, all the little flowers.
And every day is different. I found that on Wildflower Island. People would ask me, "Why are you working here in the winter?" And I would say, "Because there are things to see."
Oh
That
yeah.
it's different every day. That's the beauty of nature. We have to come up with a new word that ties music and biodiversity together. Music diversity, I don't know, but I love this link. I even felt when I was doing the floral design stuff that there was a lot of that kind of artistic endeavor carried a lot of overlap with music composition because you have
Mm-hmm.
harmony and you have balance and you have color and you
Composition.
have texture and you have mood and you have the expression of really deep sentiment. And so
Oh,
I've always felt that both these things, all these things, and I'm looking out the window right now at birds flittering through the trees and feeling really, in harmony with what's going on around me at this moment. And it makes me happy. It makes me feel like I belong and they belong and we're all going to make this work.
yeah. And when you listen to your album, that's
Hmm?
what you get. Like it's
Oh,
harmony,
gosh.
but there's going to be something different you're going to hear each time. And that's why biodiversity is so important, not for us just as viewers of it, but to experience it and to understand, like, I mean, who wants to eat the same dish every single day? Like there are some people out there that do that. So I'm not knocking you, those who do that. But
Right, right.
if you ate the same meal every single day and that's all you ate, it's kind of boring. But like nature doesn't want that. Nature's like, oh, we need to have this plant over here. And if music was just the same thing, like the same three chords. Now, if you're blues, that's different. Um, and they don't just play the same three chords either. But it's like it takes a master to be able to put it all together. So it's very like when I look at Beethoven or something like that and listen to their music and how the classical composers have been able to put all these things together, all these notes and different and so that's what's interesting about what you've done is like that needs to just go and be played in an orchestra. I mean, that's insane. You've managed to make it all work. That I would be scared to do what you did.
Oh
Like
gosh, no.
it would be
But
daunting.
I'm with you because even when I mean, like I've lived every note, but still, when I listen to the album, I still call it an album. It's
Yeah.
it reveals different things to me each time. And one of the nicest things my producer, bassist guy, said to me, and it left a lot in my mind and my heart. He said, this is a little bit like everything you've ever heard and like nothing you've ever heard.
Oh,
I was
I
like,
think he's right.
okay, okay, because I'm
There's
always
a
asked
familiar.
what kind of music do you do, and I don't know, just you
Oh,
all
I love
figure it
that.
out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're the big blend because you can't, I mean, it, because biodiversity is diversity in life is key, right? So you can't, you,
It is life. It is life.
yeah. So your music, I can't say it's classical. I can't say it's prog rock. I can say it's beautiful, enjoy it. I mean, and I think what he was saying, how I would take it for me, like, is that when you can step right into it. Like you can listen immediately without straining to listen. And that's really hard for people to listen to new music. Is like it shouldn't be work. It should,
Okay.
it should grasp you in some way. Think of its work for the listener. Like to me, I'll work for it. New music is always exciting, but people are used to their favorite songs, and that's why bands have to play cover songs all the time.
They
It's
have to
like
eat
this
the
is what
same thing every day.
exactly here we are. Like seriously, and everyone's very tired of me talking about Hotel California being played across the country on every radio station, but it's a really true thing. Eventually you hate the song. It's not the song's problem. It's a well done song. Very, very well crafted song and well played and recorded and everything. There's nothing wrong with that song. But now I can't stand it because it's the same thing. So biodiversity, musical diversity, um, but you're doing musical diversity in that even just the notes and the music itself, it's got there's got melodies, right? But I hear jazz in there, I hear a little bit of everything, but that makes it exciting, but you make it flow. And I don't think very many people can pull off that kind of flow.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know. You know what I mean?
Oh.
It's a channel. I don't know how to
Well,
explain
I
it,
have
but
help. I have
oh,
excellent.
you have some good people on your album. My
Oh,
gosh.
I do. I do. In fact, it's a thrill because I feel like I wasn't even in the delivery room when some of these parts were done because I couldn't like imagine. I don't do what you do. Do anything you want. I'll get back to you. I just open it up to whatever these guys, it happens they're all guys, whatever they want to do they can do, and I have very little way to say that's not good because it always seems to just fall right in place like nature. It's I'm
Well,
really
yeah,
lucky and blessed. It's
you plant the
amazing.
seeds. You
I
planted the
planted
seeds.
seeds, yeah, and now I gotta sow what I reap. But it's interesting because of what you were saying about the different genres. I have no idea what I am. I like to lean toward the prog rock thing because that's my favorite
Yeah.
kind of genre. But I was certainly raised on classical and teach that, and
Oh, wow.
goodness, I am
So
being
you
told
can
to do
write
some.
music then, write and read and write music.
Oh
You
yeah,
had
yeah.
to for
In
this.
fact, with all my students, I really feel like because every parent in the world wants their kid to learn piano, especially if there's one in the
Sure.
house. A piece of furniture, we got to use that. So I find that very, very often I'm teaching them how to read music because they go on to do a different instrument, which is more social and not as solitary as sitting at a piano by themselves.
Mm.
But I always teach the little youngsters row, row, row your boat because that musical form of a round is very compelling as a teaching instrument for timing and listening. And I'll tell them, you are learning the most important song in the world. And they'll look at me sideways and I'll go, you'll know when you get to the last line of the song. I'll give you a
That's
minute.
funny.
Because life is but a dream, you know?
See, so you got there. It is the dream. So and we'll get to who's on the album with you because I
Okay.
just want the flute work is incredible, and then some of the strings. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So the musicians you've worked with on here are incredible, but I want to kind of backtrack to the beginning of your musical journey. I mean, obviously you grew up on a farm in Gettysburg, right? So there's
Yeah.
Gettysburg, the battlefield.
Yeah.
Nancy and I went there during the pandemic and
Hmm.
we were so excited and then overwhelmed. We went to, Eisenhower's farm and
Yes,
I
I
understood
used to
why he
play
wanted
for um uh, uh what do you call it? Fashion shows there. I
You
used to play
played
for
fashion shows at Eisenhower's farm?
I did.
Seriously?
Yeah, yeah. I played
Again,
the
you played,
piano
and so they would
background.
strut on the catwalk on a farm?
I don't
Like,
remember. I don't remember. I was a
you
kid. I
got,
don't remember.
you were a
I don't
kid? Okay,
remember.
wow, wow, that's
But I did
amazing.
meet yeah, he voted where my parents voted. So it's a small town. It's a great hometown because it's stuck in 1863, so it's not ever going to really change or grow or evolve much beyond what it is. There is a lot of sprawl. I know the farms around my parents' farm are all now golf courses and mega mansions, and that's depressing. But it's a very
Hmm.
interesting hometown. It's very stirring. I have a lot of strong feelings about Civil War and
Mm.
stuff going on, and
We went to Eisenhower. We were staying at a bed and breakfast, George's on York in Tawnytown. And
that's where my sister lives.
oh wow, wow. Now this is a cool couple that owns this bed and breakfast, and he's all like he amazing chef, but he's like knows every inch of Gettysburg, and he's like, you got to do this hike, you got to go do this. And here, it was still the pandemic time, but it was just when people were like released. So I like to say you
Yes.
were released. And it was like it was almost a shock to our system when we were there, just being there. And we had done so many shows on Gettysburg, with the National Parks Conservation Association, with different, organizations, and then artists in residence. They stayed in the Klingel House, I think Klingel or Klingman House. Klingel House. There's a peach tree there and it's supposedly haunted. And, there's an artist residency where people through the National Parks Arts Foundation where they're allowed to stay in there for a month and create in Gettysburg. And so we were finally there and there were throngs of people and people just, it was like, even when we went to the cemetery and we see all these graves of unmarked graves and
Yeah.
it was, we just went to we did all the stuff except for going to the cyclorama and there was just so many people and they were walking over things that they shouldn't. And we went to the
Mhm.
picnic area, sat down, had a sandwich. And yes, we did have a glass of wine because we like to picnic with wine. Because if you're going to have wine, have it in nature, right? So sorry, but
Sounds
we did.
good.
Don't tell the park
Yeah.
rangers. And we
Oh,
watched these giant, I think, pileated woodpeckers, the big ones, the really big
yes,
ones,
yes, yes, yes. Oh,
and
wow,
cardinals.
cool.
And so that afternoon, we were so overwhelmed with emotion there in
It's a very
Gettysburg.
overwhelming place. There's a lot of
Insanely.
emotion there. My very first flower gigs, you might say, were when I was in elementary school, and we used to have to carry flowers in the Memorial Day parades and such, and I would have armloads of things from my grandmother's garden to put on all those graves that were just numbers. And
Wow.
it's
Wow.
powerful. It's like anywhere there's a flag, honey, put a flower. Anywhere there's a flag, and it was just
Wow.
like endless. And then later on, the graves there being dug for the Vietnam War because Arlington got
Oh.
full. So it's very
Ooh.
powerful. It's very stirring. And then later, you mentioned the cyclorama. I used to play a lot of orchestra and band gigs and stuff where Battle Hymn of the Republic is going to make me weep every time I ever hear it for the
Wow.
rest of my life, because
Wow.
it just stirs that up in me. That whole, and I think Candlewink, the first song on Dreamed, a little bit of the Civil War shows up at the end of that with the piccolo and the drums and what
Mm-hmm.
feels like that kind of era of music. It wasn't intentional. My flute player brought it out. I kind of said, "Hey, do you have a piccolo?" He's like, "Oh yeah." I said, "Great, just pull that one out for a few minutes." And
Mm.
I was just overcome with what became of that ending of that song, because it brought Gettysburg into the music. And that's funny too, because that song was inspired. It was one of the first songs I ever wrote. And in high school, we were in chemistry class. I give thanks on the album to my chemistry class, Gettysburg chemistry class, because we had to stare at a Bunsen burner and then write down all our imaging and thoughts about that. And the few of us
Ooh.
over one period of school came up with close to 200 different things that we saw watching that flame. And I was touched by how there was a consistency, but also an ever-changing thing going on with the flame. And that's why I called the song Candlewink, because I wanted to have a song that developed and kept changing, but still had a constant thread. Probably the second or so song I ever wrote as a teenager. So that's Gettysburg right there, I got to tell you.
Wow, that's amazing. When I think of that, Gettysburg, and you going and putting flowers on the unmarked graves, there's a poet, Lisa Samia, that was just there. She's been on our show a few times, and she writes poems to give voices to the voiceless. And she was just in Gettysburg because it's celebrating 106. Well, not, I don't know how to say celebrating 160 years, but um, yeah, I mean, that's growing up there. You really understand the cycle of life, not just with nature, because it's a beautiful natural spot, right? But there's the life and death, and then the music side of it with Civil War music to me is really interesting. Even Ry Cooder did some interesting stuff that just kind of harkens back to it. I know you did Jesse James, which is a little different era, but there's some interesting roots music, and we often forget that classical and war music is actually part of our roots music. And I always think about, like taps, right? Like,
Yes.
that was co-written. We were in Erie, Pennsylvania, but oh my gosh, the Hagen Historical Society, it's in Erie, Pennsylvania, Hagen House. And one of their exhibits, here's the guy that was in the Civil War, and it tied back to Gettysburg. We had just been to Gettysburg. Now we're in Erie, Pennsylvania. And then they
Gotcha.
had this whole Civil War section. And one of the guys there, and I'm going to get this wrong, but I have it on a recording somewhere that we've aired. So sorry, people, but this is the general story is one of the Erie, Pennsylvania guys that were serving the Civil War, and is obviously, when you go to Gettysburg, you have memorials for all the different states and who fought, and was there. He was there, but he was responsible for taps, which
Amazing. I never knew
I
that.
always thought taps was from England for some reason. Maybe it's just because
I would think it would have been older. My parents
yeah.
restored a house that's right on the Mason-Dixon line, and it happens to be a bed and breakfast with a Gettysburg address,
Oh,
but it's
wow.
half in Maryland and half in Pennsylvania. And it was built in the 1740s, so it was 100 years preceding the Civil War. And when they did a reenactment there to celebrate a big anniversary for that home, it was actually the French Indian War that they were reenacting, which
Oh,
surprised
wow.
me. I thought for sure they were going to do a Civil War reenactment. I had no idea that it tied back that far back, but it was really important for the Underground Railroad. It was right along a creek where the Potomac and the Monocacy rivers begin.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, Monocacy, yeah. We went to Monocacy, the battlefield there, and it's still Gettysburg like really impacted me, but Monocacy, and I'm glad you said it before me because I still butcher the name of that. I keep saying Monocacy, but whatever. But Monocacy, that when I can't get past like here you are owning this farm, and obviously you're going to understand this history, right? You own this farm, you're tilling it, you're working with your family, you're hardworking, right?
and
Dusk to dawn
finding
and all
bullets. I mean,
bullets, but they fought on
yeah.
your land. And Monocacy, there's this one house and barn, and there was slavery going on there too, even though we didn't think it was all the way up there, it was. Um, and the moms were hiding their kids downstairs while the battle went out on your own farm. And the next morning, there's all these bodies on your farm that you would wake up and normally tend to. Like, that's some crazy stuff. Like, when you think about it, like,
Yeah, well, my
there is no
sister-in-law
running
runs.
to a shelter.
She runs. It's a shameless plug, but the house is called Mary Penn because it's right on the line, and it is a bed and breakfast. And she's done a beautiful memorial, you might say, to the slaves. And she has a little. She's got the shackles that still hang there, which is
No
scary and
way.
terrible. But she also has some of their toys and the different things of their lives on display there. So it's kind of turned into a really cool museum as well. And
Oh,
yeah,
we need to go next time we got. Honestly, I'm
Mary
not
Penn.
kidding. Let's do it. We'll do it. We're gonna have to talk after this show, but let's go back to your
Okay.
music too. But going back
Yes.
to Civil War music and tying it into Candlelight, um, what do you? Could you imagine being the drummer boy in like that goes out there, the little kid that goes out there in a war, and they just put him out there, and the little flute players and just in these wars when someone goes out, like they put kids in the wars doing that. Could you imagine doing that?
Oh,
You know?
I have so many stories of things that happened in my hometown. I can't even begin. But yeah,
Wow.
that's rough. That's but it's the power of music. It's whatever it did to calm or to send a message, it was important. So I'm sure that kid felt the
He did
the
something. That was
weight
his
of
role.
his role. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. But
Now your album is called Dreamed.
yes.
So do you, I believe very strongly in the power of dreams and visualization. And I don't think visualization is just, empty thoughts at all. And, that's just my own personal opinion. I always have to say that.
I'm with you.
But when with your music, do you literally do you dream about it? Like tell us about the title Dreamed and
Okay.
um
Well, that's funny that you should ask that because I have been thinking about that someone might ask me that. And I have to say one of my favorite prog rock bands is Happy the Man. The guitarist and the bassist are on
mhm.
not only Dreamed, but my previous collection called Beauty Gone Wild.
I love
I
that
got the
title
band
by the way.
I got the
Beauty
band
Gone
back
Wild is
together.
beautiful.
That's all
Yeah,
about
you go
flowers.
girl.
But we can talk about that another time. Anyway, they have one of their rare vocal tunes is called "Wind Up Doll Day Wind," and there's a line in that song about the web of a dream. Oh gosh, how does this go? The web of a dream placed next to the real, each the barter for the other. And I often, and maybe you do too, have moments of deja vu, intuitive feelings where I have to actually take pause and wonder, did I dream that or did that really happen? Every friend I have lives with a gift I've made for them of a particular flower that I call dream flowers that is scattered under their beds on a tray. It's edible herb. It's nothing too toxic. And it just helps to generate lucid, vivid, strong dreams.
You're tripping.
And I'm hoping to actually merchandise that in coordination with this album.
Well,
But so yeah, I do find it to be very important. And I actually, as I said, sometimes wonder if I imagined it, if I dreamt it, or if I really did do
went into a
what
different life.
Yes, I don't know.
That's what I always trip. I always wonder, like, was I like astro traveling? I'm not meaning to get trippy, but
Sure. No,
why
no,
not?
I'm with you.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
must,
because there's dreams like you wake up and it'll take me like an hour to like I need to drive or I need to go. I've got a recording or something. I'm like, dude, like that was too real
yes.
for it not to be real, man. And
And I
through
don't
dream
always
work, I've always
rem
changed life. Dreams have changed my personal life, 100%. Like,
okay. I won't always remember dreams, and then I'll be doing something in my day, and it'll come right back to me. That happened.
ooh,
That I just had that in my dream, and I would have lost it forever and always, but something in my day triggered it once again. So I find it to be
hmm,
a real important part of, like I said, life is but a dream, the most important song.
hmm.
Not that I use
Do you think
words.
that our dreams, like, it's kind of like this other side, like I feel like
Well,
the indigenous people of the world,
yes.
of like of here, and I lived and grew up in Africa, and
Oh my.
so the people that are indigenous to the land, like, you know what I mean? Here we are now in society that travels the world, and we do jet set here, do that, do that. But when you're really connected to the land and you like watch a fire, like I've seen people in fire, like people are going to go like, what were you smoking? I don't know. But anyway, but there's a connection with, if you look in tri different tribes around the world, dreaming and visions are a huge part of life and usually come true. And I wonder about that. Like, have we lost that connection to that inner thing that we as society don't because we have to wear pretty dresses and high heel shoes, I wish Nancy was on here with right now because she's like already like, we're not wearing that. Um,
Nor am
she's
I must say.
no, no, no. But we became the society thing, and so we
Yeah.
lost one of our senses. We have the six senses. Well, I think we have far more that are untapped. And if we allow those kinds of explorations of our dreams and open up to it, that we can, it's another form of communication and being more connected with the outside and inner world, basically.
Well,
Did I
I'm
make
hoping that
sense at all?
it does totally. I mean, I'm hoping that the reason I titled this collection carries that whole promise. I know Sigmund Freud said that each dream is a wish. Um,
Mm.
so it makes you wonder, why don't we just keep looking deeper and trying harder and all those things that occur to us and don't occur to us in our waking state. It's important. I really do believe it. So
Mm.
I do have it's kind of cool. The daughter of my horn player on both collections, Beauty Gone Wild and Dreamed, has put together a really fun video that will be released with the release of Dreamed. It's going to be on YouTube and all over, I hopefully, of the
Awesome.
song Dream Prince. And like I tell all the musicians I work with, I also wanted her to understand, do whatever you want. I would like it to just feel like dreams, whatever, like fingerprints, dream prints, whatever that
Ah,
evokes in your filmmaking background and artistry. Go for it. And I think she did. You said the word trippy, so I have to mention it. It
well,
is.
no, but I love that because I'm going to send you some things after this, but the reality of this is like this is a kind of really cool life lesson is, I'm a Virgo perfectionist, which is really annoying, but I get stuff done through it, organizational
Mm,
brain, right? However,
sure.
when I let it all go, like I really do, and then like you won't hear from me for days, I'm off in the woods. So like the part of the societal thing I was talking about, right, is control. And nature already has its cycles and knows its controls and its things. And there's life and death all the time in nature, which people go, oh no, this animal killed something. And, I can watch an animal kill and I'm like, oh, that sucks. And I feel bad for the animal getting killed, right? And like in Africa, you'd watch a cheetah take down an impala or something. And it's
Mhm.
not callous, but you living that way, you understand the cycle. It's like praying mantis eat other animals and black widows and all of that, right? That's how
Right.
watch, we, do you care when a bald eagle takes out a fish? Like I care about the fish. Like, oh, that was your now, but then you're on to another journey, right? You're now food, and that means you're moving on. So energy never dies.
It's
But
transforming. It's
yeah,
important
it's
to all the
transforming.
beings. I
Right.
actually have a song on dreams called Sunwise, which
Oh,
is
I
going to
love it.
it's going to open my website. And that a couple of musicians says, well, sunwise. I'm like, yeah, it's like clockwise. It's like you go every year, you go around the sun one more time.
Hmm.
So that's why I came up with that title. I actually tend to name my songs according to the moment I write them and whatever sort of release I need at that time or prayer I need to make at that time. So it's most often a title that ties me back into a particular thing going on with me. But sunwise to me is exactly what you're conveying, that things are cyclic. And
It's like they're cyclic, but it's also like this control thing, like what you're doing with the band, saying, do what you want. Here's my composition, right?
yeah,
Here's
here's
what
the
I've come up with.
skeleton.
You do,
Yes.
yeah, you do what you do best, right? And giving, not controlling it, because like basically nature has the control. No matter how we look at it, look at climate, nature's going to control. And so and it's cyclical, like you're saying, and it's going to change. The cycles will change because that's also part of nature. Nature is constant change. But when you let go of control, that's why you have wildflowers instead of like, now we're going to perfectly manicure your lawn and make it
Right.
square. Take those dandelions out, kill no
Monoculture.
dandelion wine for you. So when you release control, you allow art to grow. And if you try to box it in, you're going to like, you're boxing in this, you're boxing in the spirit, which isn't necessarily, that's not good. You know what I mean? So I think that's
Do.
what's probably really cool with your music is that you're letting people do their best. And that's a life lesson of control. And that's hard to
I
say since I'm a Virgo. Like that's where I was
I
going. I'm like,
haven't even thought about that, but I just figured I would get the best out of the whole experience and everybody would have their most fun. And I want always everything
I
done,
like
especially
that.
with other folks, to just always be fun.
Oh,
Or
yeah,
why bother?
yeah,
Life is too
yeah.
short. It's,
With joy and fun. Well, flowers give joy, right? And trees and nature. I want to give a shout out to everybody that is on your album. Gary Blue, so he was doing the flutes, right? And the clarinet.
he does flutes, clarinets, saxophones,
Oh,
and
he did the
what?
piccolo.
And piccolo. And I hope I'm not leaving out anything. I tried to get him to do oboe, but he was like, I don't really do the double reeds. I'm like, that's fine. Um,
You
so
got Rick Kennel.
yes, he's did the strings. I'm so glad you enjoy those. He likes to orchestrate. He's the bassist. He's like enlivens my left hand, right there, that side of my heart. It's real important.
Mm, mm. And then and percussion too. Well, look,
Yeah,
strings and piano are all construction percussion, right? When you think
construction
about it.
percussion. Yeah, uh-huh.
It is true, actually, when it comes to the foundation. And yeah, bass is
Yeah.
foundation with the drummer. So that makes sense. And then Stanley Whitaker, so he's guitar, right?
He does guitars on a handful of the songs. Yes.
And then Mark Wood is doing the violin on Sunwise, and he did an amazing
Yeah,
job
he
on
is
that
amazing.
too.
He's wood violins almost. I hope I'm not
Wow.
overstepping, but I think if you ever see an electric violin on stage, it's a wood violin. He's definitely, I think, one of the best in the world. And I was lucky and blessed to have all of these guys come to the game.
Did you always play piano? Was that the first thing for
Yes,
you?
yes.
Mm.
And then I don't know if you've seen the picture in the album. It's going to be on the website for those who stream, because who listens to CDs? I don't know. But
I do.
I'm like, it's my, I don't know. I'm 9 years old maybe, holding a sax.
I
So I
saw that.
started.
That's why I was
Okay.
asking.
Yes, yes. So I wanted to be in the band, and in school they were like, I wanted to play something that was easy for me to carry and light and feminine and da 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 da, and talk about control. The band leaders teacher said, we don't have any more of those instruments to rent out. We don't need any of that. And my mother tells me that my grandfather's sax is living in the attic. Oh, we could use an alto sax. So guess what? Decision made. I was playing sax, and it wasn't really my favorite best first thing. I did okay with it. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I had a chance then later to get my hands on a relative's flute that wasn't being used, so I taught myself the flute. I played that. I played sax in band, flute in orchestra. I played the piano for the chorus and the choir, and the organ in the church. And then all during this time, I also taught myself guitar, just folk acoustic guitar, and I would do the lame folk singer thing for a while. Mm-hmm. But piano was always my main study, and I went to school to be a piano major.
Wow. And then, to be able to write it and then teach it, and from the piano, and I feel that way too about the guitar. You can go from either instrument and go after other instruments, and start learning those too and understand them. There's something cool about a piano because there is that percussive side of it.
There's something cool, but as I mentioned before, and one of the reasons a lot of my students progressed away from it is it's very solitary. You have to be, and I think the fact that I grew up on the farm, I learned right away, if I'm reading a book or I'm practicing the piano, they aren't going to make me do too many chores. They're going to oh, she's doing that, let her do that. She's, that's what she wants to do, that's good. She doesn't have to kill herself in the garden or whatever. But in a lot of ways, like even teaching myself the guitar so I could play folk songs and be singing with groups, youth groups and stuff, it's more social. Piano is quite solitary. It's hard for a lot of personalities to really want to, I think, take that on, honestly, especially these days.
Yeah, I mean, I think about you remember the piano singer, right? One person in a bar playing, and obviously Elton John. I'm not Elton. What's his name? Billy Joel did it so well, like the Piano Man. Just singing there and having to put on a show, one person show. I always look at that. It's like it's. There's one thing to be a good musician and singer, but then you have to perform. And if you don't have a band with you and you're doing it on your own, I'm always giving extra kudos to those who are carrying all of that. And it's hard, but it's yeah, it's like a whole different experience.
Felt like I never really had anything to say with words, so I wasn't about to start getting into the lyric side of things. But I did nurture a lot of these songs as a person who would play the coffee houses and want to sit there for a few hours and play all my own original music and not repeat myself. So that's why I have a pretty good catalog of stuff that I've written, because I would want to have a couple of hours worth of music that was all just me, no cover songs. I think the only cover tune I ever really did was Where Have All the Flowers Gone? I did my
Oh, no kidding. That. Yeah, right. That makes sense.
I riffed on that a little bit, but I wanted to just kind of be background and just entertain. I mean, be like a mood, a vibe kind of thing. So that led me to write a lot during certain periods of when I had time to do that. And that's why I'm, especially when we were COVID quarantined, I thought, I have all this stuff. Let's try to work on some things.
That's cool.
It has been a long time since my first recording.
I mean, you said you got the band back together. Did you record it together? Or did it, did you just, how did you make it flow? Wow.
Well, back to the quarantine thing. It was all, how did we make it flow? Well, everybody now can exchange audio files and do it in the comfort of their own studios. Mark Wood's in Tucson, Stanley's in Maryland.
Oh, Mark Wood's, that's where we lived, was Tucson.
And
that's where our storage unit is.
Well, Wood Guitars is still in Long Island, and we got to know him when he lived here in New York, but they moved out there. And let's see, Gary's in Connecticut. We did go to his studio to do the flutes live and engineer that, from his home studio. But no, it was all done on an individual basis. I'll do my part, then you'd add this, then you add this, then you add this, and it was layered. Wow. It's a modern day thing, but it's not artificial intelligence. It's all performed.
That's an important thing to say these days, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really. Well, I love it. I love how it came out. It's beautiful, and everybody go get it. Go to Leah Waybright, and that's BRIGHT, leahwaybright.com. And of course, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. The album is called Dreamed, and you can get it everywhere. It's out now. So thank you so much, Leah. It's been a true pleasure, and we look forward to having you back on our Nature Connection show in September so we can kick off the solstice talking about plants.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.